two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Alright. Just check some stuff here. Alright. Here we go. We're live. Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Welcome to Politics and Culture and some other shit, the live stream. This is going to go up as a podcast tomorrow, or probably tonight. Hope you're well. This is my first live stream in a few weeks. I have had I've got good reasons for that. Get my papers sorted out here from yeah, so the other week I had the Northern Ireland Music Prize. That was it. So I had that, which I didn't win. I didn't expect to win, but we had a great night. Oh, it was fantastic. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was brilliant. We had such fun. Chris and Chris's wife, the Shelster, Shelley, was supposed to come. And we were supposed to go and get fucked up and have a party, and they had babysitters booked and all that sort of stuff. And me and Jeannie and Summer Lily, we were all going to go, and then there was a little bit of a COVID incident, and Chris had to. He actually got COVID, so he couldn't come. So, and then my daughter Summer was getting a lift with him at one point, and she had to stay at home as well, although she didn't get it. So that was why. So we ended up going to the North. Me, Jeannie, and Lily ended up going to the Northern Ireland Music Prize, and it was brilliant, and we had a lot of fun. And Lily got her photograph taken with Terry Hooley, who she adores. And yeah, it was great. Loved it. Felt very special. And the album that won it was Saint Sister. They were brilliant. And then the next week I couldn't because I couldn't do the thing because I was looking after my voice. You can probably still hear it. I'm still a bit like Sunday, Monday there. Saturday, I couldn't talk at all. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, my voice had completely gone. I was only starting to come back around now. So I was protecting my voice for the gig on last Thursday in Voodoo in Belfast, which is our first proper sort of live, sweaty, gig thing in 2 years. No, well, that's not true. We did play one in the Whitehead and all the rest. So it's a small place, but sort of a small to medium-sized club, which is our kind of bread and butter. And it was our first one back doing that, and it made us feel class. And special shout out to the boys that supported us, King Creeper and Matty James Cassidy. He's Irish guy. He resides over in Manchester, so I'd never heard of him before, and he was fantastic. Sort of I'm not going to say rockabilly, rock and roll. He does rock and roll type stuff. Very, very good, very sexy, very groovy. I liked it a lot, and so did everyone that came to see him. And it was great to be at the gig too, because it was a real great mix. There's lots of young people milling about. My daughter Lily, she came up on stage and sung No Lawn Lurgan with us, and there was also a big age group. Everybody was there. It was fantastic, and I met a few people who I've never actually met in real life. Duffer and a few. Well, there was Tony. I'm trying to think I'm not even going to mention no more names. It was too many to mention. I'm struggling now to think of everybody's name. But I met all these people who I'd never met before, who have kind of gotten to know one online over lockdowns and all this sort of stuff. So that was kind of interesting. We never really got to talk much, but we just got to say hello. It was nice. And so that was great. Pardon me. What else? So there was that. Right, updates, tour, Bonneville's tour, there we go. UK tour coming up, and we've got Euro thing being booked for March as well, although I don't really know what the situation with Europe is at the minute, or whether that's going to happen, but it's being booked as I talk. So we'll see. So here's the Bonneville's gigs for the UK tour. We're playing the Banshee Labyrinth in Edinburgh on Friday the 4th of February. So that's the start. What a great name for a venue. I've never been there before. Can't wait. Nice and sleazy in Glasgow. The Black Abbot in Montrose on Sunday the 6th, which is one of our old favourite sort of haunts. It's a wee small bar we play. We know people from Montrose, and they invited us up years ago to come and play a gig, and we did, and we've been going back ever since. And it doesn't make any sense for us to go up there, but we do it anyway because we love them all, and they're great crack. Monday the 7th we play Base Camp Middlesbrough in England. Tuesday the 8th, these are all February, we play Underworld in London, which is going to be a great gig. The Bunkhouse in Swansea on Wednesday the 9th. The Pavilion, Colwyn Bay in Wales, obviously. The Clooney in Newcastle, Friday the 11th. Saturday the 12th, St Patrick's Irish Club in Leamington Spa. And the Rialto Centre, the Rialto Theatre in Brighton, Sunday the 13th of February. And all those dates we're playing with our buddies Mudlow, and we love touring with each other. We've done it a few times now, and they're great crack, and they're a great band. Obviously they're a great band. Go check them out. So yeah, go onto your Spotify. Mudlow, Mudlow. We've been friends with Mudlow since before the Bonnevilles, actually, or certainly just as long as the Bonnevilles, and they're lovely people, and we love them. We love them dearly. They're our favourite English people, and we can't wait to tour with them again. So, right. So yes, right. So this next update is Kate Nicholson asked me a while back would I. She's a Northern Ireland singer-songwriter, musician, and she's got a debut album coming out, and she asked me would I support her, and I said I would love to support her. So her album's called Fallen From Grace, and the launch is the 18th of February, and it's going to be in the OYA Centre in Belfast, and I'll be backing her up. Some solo acoustic stuff, and I'm really happy to do it. The tickets are released this Friday, so keep an eye out for that. You can get I'll retweet those and all that sort of stuff, so you'll be able to get those online if you want. And I would suggest that you get them pretty quick, because it's going to be like a sort of a sit-down gig. There's not going to be hundreds and hundreds of tickets. I don't know what the capacity is for the OES Centre with everybody seated, but it's not a massive room. It's a fair size of a room, but so if you wanted to get those tickets, I would get on it. So here is, oh yes, so we played that gig in, there's a picture, sexy Chris, look at him, isn't he gorgeous? We played that gig in Voodoo in Belfast, and it got reviewed, and so if you want to go and check the review out, Rock and Load, so the website's called rockandloadmag.com, so it's like rock, ROCK NLOD mag MAG, all one word, .com. Go and check that out. So they do, it says here, Rock and Load, rock news, blues reviews, album reviews, live reviews, country Americana interviews, etc. And they do, you can see it on the screen there. There's a picture of me looking fucking pretty good, god damn it. But the guy, what's his name? It's at the bottom here. Mark Russell. He did a really in-depth review of the gig, and he gave everybody a good amount of column inches, let's call it that, and took some cracking photographs. And you can see it all there on the website. And there's Matty James Cassidy, and there's King Creeper. You can see it. Davy McCrum there, and there's the Bonnevilles. Yeah, so there you go. So you should check that out if you can. Shut that down. Don't need that anymore. And then what else? Yes, so we're gonna. I was talking about it on the podcast last week, where I was interviewed, and so I think I've mentioned it before about playing a gig up Slieve Gullion. So I'm sort of determined to do that. So I'm going to be doing that either with, hopefully with Stevie Scullion and Barry Kerr. I don't think I've mentioned it to them, so if they're listening, this is the first they're going to hear about it. You're going to be getting tapped up to do something with me. I think I have mentioned it to them, but if they don't do it, I'm going to do it myself. But I know they would. So, yeah. And what else? So, yeah. So today, I wanted to do this real quick. I'm not going to linger on this one, but you might have heard Allegra Stratton, the government spokesperson, has resigned. So for laughing about in the Downing Street press room. So what happened was Boris Johnson a while back decided to set up or appoint someone to be like like the American president has a he doesn't actually come out onto the podium and address the media. So he has someone else do that for him. So that's a very American thing. So Boris Johnson obviously decided for whatever reason that was a good idea. It means that he doesn't have to be scrutiny. It puts him one step farther away from scrutiny, doesn't it? So he appointed Allegra Stratton. So I thought most of you probably know that Allegra Stratton has resigned, but maybe you didn't exactly know who Allegra Stratton is. So I'm going to read you a quick thing. I'm not going to read you the whole article because it's quite long, but just to give you an idea. So Allegra Stratton, by the way, I've started the podcast, I've started the live stream. I should have announced that I'm done with my updates. Yep, looking at my sheet of paper here. Yep, okay. So we're going to go into it. Allegra Stratton is a British journalist who the public were set to be seeing a lot more of and now no longer will. The Chancellor's former head of communications was recruited by the PM to host the government's new White House-style televised press briefings. Sorry. Only the new news is they won't be happening. They have been scrapped amid concerns about the political risk following the £2.6 million. That's a wee bit out of date. Following the £2.6 million renovation of the new room to host them. Right? So the 41-year-old BBC and ITV news presenter will now move on to working on the COP Climate Change Summit. So she was brought in to do that job. They spent $2.5 million doing the room up, and then they decided that they're not going to do it. So that's who she is. But I'm going to play you something that it's going to tell you more. And I love this because if you really want to know, get to the heart of a matter. Oh, bollocks, I haven't loaded it in. Let me see if I can get it for you. You go to a comedian. A comedian will help you find who people are. Oh, here we go. There it is. So I'm going to load this in for you real quick.
Hi, I'm Allegra Stratton, friend of Carrie Johnson, aka Simmons. I'm the wife of James Forsyth, who is the political editor of The Spectator. And Rishi Sunak was best man at our wedding, and he's godfather to our children. A video was leaked by some
Right. So, this is a comedian called Suze Kemper, right? And if this came on my Twitter feed, so I downloaded it. So you go and follow her on @Sue UK, SOO UK, Suze Kemper. And I find that when you go to comedians and things, when they're the politically, for politics, they kind of, because it's the nature of what they do, they tend to get to the heart of the matter real super quick. So I'm going to play this video. It's only like 40 seconds or something. So, but it's just her skit on this twat resigning.
Hi, I'm Allegra Stratton, friend of Carrie Johnson, aka Simmons. I'm the wife of James Forsyth, who is the political editor of The Spectator. And Rishi Sunak was best man at our wedding, and he's godfather to our children. A video was leaked by some absolute snake emoji of me, where it looks like I was finding it funny that rules were broken when they weren't, because there was not me of Bean Happened a party. But I will regret my misconstrued remarks that I didn't mean, because, like, what party, snake emoji, for the rest of my long, long moneyed life. I understand why people are angry. It's because I was earning £100,000 a year as Downing Street's official spokesperson, and I literally never held one press briefing. And until today, most people didn't have a clue what I looked or sounded like. And the first they saw of me was me giggling about breaking rules when almost 1,000 people per day were dying of COVID. So I'm resigning from that job, and I'm so proud of what I did, which was absolutely nothing except for the giggling. P.S. I won't be paying any fines because I didn't do anything wrong.
So there you go. Well done, Suze UK. That was class. And she absolutely nailed it. I'm assuming that you've seen the video, right? We'll check that. I'm assuming that you've seen the video. But I'm not going to play it. I actually had it loaded in, and I don't know that I can be fucking bothered. Yeah. So there's the video there. It's on Twitter and it's all over the place. And it's basically that. It's just her moaning and crying. But Owen Jones says, sympathy being rained down on Allegra Stratton by her former media colleagues was not extended to the single mum she humiliated in an attempt to falsely portray her as a benefit scrounger. Remember that? That was her. Do you remember that? I do. Stratton is an indictment of a media culture that encourages us to punch down and not up. I want to talk about that, something a wee bit closer to home for me, about that in a minute. The media is supposed to hold the government to account, and instead journalists such as Stratton treat the media and government as one big cosy club you can flip between at ease. And that is corrupting our already tragically compromised democracy. And as you can see there, the man himself, George Carlin, says it's one big club and you ain't in it. And that's right. And then more on the Allegra Stratton thing. James Forsyth is her husband, who is the political editor of The Spectator. And The Spectator have done this article, The Phony War on Allegra Stratton. So, you know, as George Carlin says, it's one big club. You won't get that sort of cover. You won't get this sympathy. You won't get this opportunity to not have to go and fucking hide your head in shame, which most of the rest of us do. Whenever we we don't do these things. You don't do it. It's scum. These people are scum. So yeah. So there we go. So, right, I'm going to get to the first. That was kind of all my updates. I wanted to get that wee Allegra Stratton thing in. And by the way, whilst the Allegra Stratton thing was going on this afternoon at 3 or 4 o'clock, the government, Priti Patel, was pushing through a bill that was going to criminalise people that rescue migrants in the Channel. So that actually passed. The government voted that through. That was going on while this Allegra Stratton bullshit was happening. So there we go. Just so we know. Right. So the first... Oh, I've lost my bloody article. Give us a second. Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to share with you tonight is the state of the music industry. Now, this is more of a personal thing for me because I'm obviously a musician, allegedly, right? So I'm gonna open up a wee bit with this one tonight. This is because I've been a full-time or mostly full-time musician for quite a number of years now. And this week, well, end of last week actually, I had to start a full-time job. So now, before anybody says, oh, poor you having to work for a living, don't go there with me. I do work for a living. I work very, very fucking hard for a living. I always have. Being a musician is a precarious, dangerous, insecure profession. Being a member of any of the arts is, we know this, right? So there's an article here it's from the BBC by Mark Savage, and it says 1 in 3 musicians earning nothing after the pandemic, charity says. Now I can tell you that that's pretty much my situation. But I'll read this article, then I'll explain to you why I haven't starved to death. So 1/3 of musicians were still earning nothing after restrictions on live events were lifted this summer, according to the UK charity Help Musicians, who are friends run in Belfast, Keith Miller, and those guys, they're fantastic people. The music industry is one of the last sectors to recover from the pandemic, it said, with 83% of professional musicians unable to find regular work. The findings are based on a survey of 929 musicians in August. Almost 9 in 10 were earning less than £1,000 per month, and 22% were considering giving up music altogether. Now, I have considered that. I've been there quite a few times over the past 2 years. Restrictions on live music were removed in England and Wales in July and Scotland in August. After COVID had kept the live music industry shut for most of the pandemic. A lot of the venues were like, well, we'll just stay shut until we can get back to full capacity again. Ruth Lyon of folk rock band Holy Moly and the Crackers told the BBC News. Her group went from playing 120 shows a year pre-lockdown to almost 18 months off stage. We had 30 festivals lined up, we had a tour booked at the end of last year, and we had shows pretty much every single weekend. And that all fell apart within a few days. Lyon said her earnings fell by more than 75% in 2020. Her band weren't able to resume shows until last month because she has an immunosuppressant condition that puts her at high risk. I couldn't be in a position where I could be a guinea pig, she explained. We had to wait until it was safe for me and I was cleared by my medical team to go back out. Now, that is obviously with her medical condition, that puts her in an even, a pretty rare group, I suppose. But nonetheless, the point isn't lost. James Brown, the guitarist with Leeds-based rock band Pulled Apart by Horses, said their earnings nosedived last year and royalties from streaming services and radio airplay could not make up the shortfall. The royalties from streaming services won't make up the shortfall because the royalties from streaming services aren't worth fucking having, certainly for musicians at my level. It takes time for royalties to come through, he explained. It can take months, if not years, so the backlog for musicians of being able to earn good, stable salary from music has slowed down to a halt. Unable to tour, Brown took work as a composer for film and TV soundtracks, but still found himself unable to make ends meet. He ended up asking help musicians for support, both financially and for his mental health. To go from 10 years of performing live to suddenly hitting this brick wall where you were told it's not happening anymore, it's devastating. Help musicians said it had seen a 60% increase in people getting in contact for mental health support, with 1 in 8 saying they were experiencing a mental health problem that was preventing them from returning to work. During the pandemic, the charity distributed $18 million to 19,000 struggling musicians. And we recognise that for some musicians it will take a long time to rebuild. Even getting back into the swing of playing concerts can be a challenge, as Pulled Apart by Horses discovered this summer. We actually did play one festival that didn't get cancelled, and it was so bizarre. After having all that time of not being around people and then being thrown straight into the deep end, it was kind of like, what's going on? It was kind of terrifying. Speaking about her return to performing, Lion said, I've loved it, but it's been difficult. Usually I get carried off stage and straight onto the merch stall, hugging people and taking selfies, but I'm still trying to keep my distance a bit, so I've really missed that aspect of it. And even so, get back on stage has been beneficial. Even so, she said, getting back on stage has been beneficial to her mental health. Performance is a huge part of who I am, and this is a big part of it, that you must understand that when you've been performing and you've been training yourself all your life to do this job, and then all of a sudden it's stopped, as it was for us all, you lose a lot more than the income. You lose your a very important outlet. And if you're a creative person, you can be a creative person who doesn't create, and that muscle might calcify maybe totally go away. But if you're a creative person that creates, constantly creates, and then you have to stop creating, what you tap into to create is every aspect of human nature, every aspect of who you are. And it all goes into your art, into your music, into whatever it is you do. And then when that's stopped, then this is where these mental health problems all start to come in. Do you see? So, Lion added, if there's one silver lining to the dire circumstances musicians have faced in the last 2 years, it's that they're more willing to seek help. So many friends have never thought about getting counselling or going to therapy before this, and now everybody's talking about it, so in a way that's a good thing. And that is true. You can't help but have noticed that over the pandemic. Reaching out if you need to. Don't be ashamed. We're all struggling. So, that's a good article. It kind of covers everything from the mental health aspect to the financial aspect. Me personally, I didn't suffer any of the mental health things other than worrying and struggling about whether I was going to be able to continue with my childhood dream. And this is the thing. So, I'm a man of, let's call a certain age now, right? I'm not in my 20s anymore. And me and Jeannie, we've put everything on the line in order for me to be able to do this. And we don't regret it. It's been fantastic. We've done some amazing things. And we're going, don't get me wrong, I'm not quitting or anything. We're going to carry on. But the point is this. We're still sitting here in such a state of uncertainty that I can't in good conscience consider myself to be a full-time musician anymore, because I need that income. And I need an income. We've struggled without an income. And now we don't get... Jeannie was on furlough for a long part of it. Not all of it, for a long part of it. And that kept us afloat. And then thank God for the Help Musicians and the PRS Foundation and PPL and the Arts Council in Northern Ireland. Every now and again you get a wee grant and we just keep your head above water, and that was great and much needed. And we were doing live streams and things like that. And again, we started those live streams. We did really well. I did really well out of the first couple, but then everyone started to do them, which was great. And then, everyone else is having to cut the cloth to suit their own needs as well. And you can't just be giving money to everybody all the time. So the revenue from those sort of dropped off quite substantially, but they're still worth doing all the while because it was great. But so I had to get myself a job, and that's me now full time doing something else, which means that place that you have to put yourself into to make music, you can't be there all the time. Now I want to read you this little thing that might explain it. Jeannie sent this to me during the week, and she said, "This is you." She explained it. All right, that's just what she said. She said, "This is you." And it was from a book that she's reading about mythology and all the rest of it. Jeannie got a job in Navan Fort, by the way, my wife. Isn't that class? So she's going to be working down there. So she was reading up on some stuff, and she sent me this, and she just went, "This is you." And there's a particular part of it that I like. So it's about what the position that musicians and poets and artists held within our ancient society. So the deities and fairies of the Tuatha Dé Danann found allies in the poets, or the Fili, who were collectively known as Aes Danann, men of arts, servants of the goddess Donna, Anna Anya. They moved freely through tribal areas and across political social boundaries, and were especially well represented in Munster, the province of poetry. Poets were specialists in liminantry. I don't even know what that word is. I've never seen that word in my life. They operated at the thresholds between now this is the bit. They operated at the thresholds between the categories of space, time, or identity, in dangerous frontier conditions, among uncomfortable truths. They shaped into harmonious knowledge on behalf they shaped into harmonious knowledge on behalf of the community. Now, I'm going to read that again. That last bit. They operated at the thresholds between categories of space, time, or identity, in dangerous frontier conditions, among uncomfortable truths. They shaped these into harmonious knowledge on behalf of the community. Now, that is the best description of a musician that I have ever seen. That's exactly what you do. That you live in this. You in your brain. You're in this place. You're in this other place. You see with all artists that this is what's required of you, to have the uncomfortable thought and turn it into, and to, whereas somebody else may have a thought that's maybe quite dark or uncomfortable or unpleasant or whatever, and they leave it at that. They go, "Oh, she's not going to." The musician, or the artist, the poet, the comedian, the actor, the writer, whatever, they don't. We don't. We go deeper into it, and out of that you turn that into knowledge on behalf of the community. Right? Isn't that a beautiful way of putting it? Knowledge on behalf of the community. So, but what that requires is, you can imagine that's heavy shit, right? So that requires you to be there. It requires you to be present. And if you're not there, if you're not present, you're not going to make your art. You're not going to do it as well as you can. So for me personally, having to get this job, I'm a driver now. That's what I do. I'm now a driver. I deliver things, and I'm happy to do it. It's a great wee job. I actually enjoyed it. I've done 2 days so far. I go in tomorrow again at 7 o'clock, and I actually enjoy it. I do like it, and I'm getting. It's not very difficult or anything, and I'm out on my own, so there is some thinking time there, and hopefully I'll be able to operate in the threshold between the categories of space, time, or identity while I'm out in my van. So, my truck. So, there you go. So, that's what I'm saying. So, and I wanted to play you this as well. So, Mary Coughlin actually spoke about this on a TV show, and it's with the South. The South has now put in more restrictions, and there's a lot of gigs being cancelled that have been organised, and they're rolling back the opening up of society and again, it's the pub life and it's the arts community that's been getting hit the hardest. So she was on a programme on RTE, and this is what she had to say about it. Check this out.
You've just rescheduled everything. That sector has waited so long to start up again.
Yeah, but these new lot of gigs now have been rescheduled into April next year. So that gives you maybe some idea. If these people, I have no salary. The people I know have no salary. We don't have a salary at the end of every month. We don't have pensions. If they could walk in our shoes for 1 year, they would know what it's like to be a self-employed entertainer in this country. That's across actor, singer, dancer, whatever. Okay. And we never moan. We don't have pensions. We don't have holiday money. We don't have sick benefits. And we don't moan, but we want somebody to look after us now because we have been asked to look after the population by not working for the past 21 months.
So there you go. So, and that she put that perfectly well. You're a self-employed musician. That's the way it is, and it's great. And I like being self-employed. Well, no longer, and hopefully I'll get back. I'm just right now. This is my reality. I'm going to have to live with this. We've got a tour booked for February. There's another tour being booked for March. Now I'm in a position where I'm going to have to say, because what I was going to do was just work away. When the tours come up, just leave the job because that'll be me back to work. But it looks like these restrictions are they're coming across Europe. Austria and Italy, they put restrictions in place. Germany, and the south of Ireland has, of course. So now I'm saying, right, if I leave this job and then these tours don't happen, or that the European one doesn't happen, I think we're okay for the UK one. The European one doesn't happen. What do I do then? I know I'm fucked again. 2 years of not earning any money, not earning a few quid, but we got by. But savings have gone. Your momentum all goes. You have to build that all back up again. That's difficult. This is the reality for us all. And I know most of the people that are watching this probably know me from the band anyway, and your sympathy lies with us, but not everybody thinks that. I actually had a cousin at the beginning of this thing told me to go and get a job in Tesco's. Great place to work, I'm sure. I'm not slagging Tesco's off or anyone that works there. Honourable, hard-working people, but it just sort of showed that she didn't really know what she was talking about, and especially a cousin. Not from around here, from somewhere else, and my family's full of musicians. Her one of her brothers is a musician. Things like, it was very like, okay, you've been a bit of a dick. She is a bit of a dick, but anyway. So there we go. So that's that. I wanted to read that out to you, just to let you know. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Bonneville's is still going to happen. I'm still going to gig. We're still going to do things. But not as much. I have to knock it. We really do because of this. But there is a solution. I should point out what I should say. There is a solution. I'm not just moaning. I do have a solution. The solution, if this is true, on the screen here. And I believe it is. The solution is a UBI for artists. I think we should get a UBI anyway. I think everyone should get a UBI. I believe in the UBI. But I think artists should definitely get a UBI. Doesn't need to be a lot. Just a trickle, and then we can make the rest up with our live gigs. Because you got to remember, most musicians, most artists, most whatever aren't, the big famous people. The vast majority of us are middle to low lying, and in times like these, where there's so many people quitting, I've basically been forced into reconsidering. I will go as long and as hard as I can, but that's where I am. But I've got great support. There's plenty of people out there have no support. So just read that last wee bit. They operated at the thresholds between the categories of space, time, or identity. In these dangerous frontier conditions, among uncomfortable truths, they shaped into harmonious knowledge on behalf of the community. And that, for me, is worth a UBI. So, there we go. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about, I'm going to do this one. I love this. Now, I'm sure you've heard of Naomi O'Leary. Naomi O'Leary is a fantastic journalist. She does her fantastic podcast, one of my very, very favourites. It's called The Irish Passport. You've heard me talking about it in the past. I've spoken about it quite a few times. And I know that some of you, I'll make this a little bit bigger. There we go. I know that some of you do follow that and listen to that now. So, this was one from a few weeks ago. And obviously because I haven't been doing too many podcasts, I haven't been doing any this past few weeks. This was in my sort of list of things that I wanted to share with you that I never got an opportunity to. But she basically put this out. She posted this article. Now, it's not her article, but it's basically about, as you can read on the screen there, it was the front page of the Financial Times. US delays deal to lift Trump-era steel tariffs over Northern Ireland fears. The Northern Ireland fears being, well, I'll read it here. The US is delaying a deal to remove Trump-era tariffs on the UK steel and aluminium because of Washington's fears over London's threats to change the post-Brexit trading rules in Northern Ireland. So that's remove the Northern Ireland Protocol. That's what they're referring to. Brussels and Washington have repeatedly warned London that unilaterally changing the EU-UK accord that sealed Britain's exit from the bloc in 2020 could threaten peace on the island of Ireland. And in a communication seen by the Financial Times, a US Commerce Department official stated that talks with the UK on easing metal tariffs could not move ahead. That's a big deal, right? And they reference directly the Northern Ireland Protocol. Now, so Naomi O'Leary put this great little thread together. It's just a few things, but I'll read it to you. Washington has halted progress to lift steel tariffs in the UK due to its concerns about the British government threat to use Article 16 to suspend the Northern Ireland Protocol. Right? So you know that. So I'll scroll down the page a little bit. And she's replied to herself, NB, the United States already agreed back in October to lift its tariffs on the EU steel, effective from January the 1st. The EU called it a landmark year for transatlantic relations, and that it had successfully pressed the reset button with the Biden administration. Right? This gets better. It remains funny that London is sending a Trevelyan on a charm offensive to Washington to try and talk Biden down on this. Now, the Trevelyan that she's referring to is this. International Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan is scheduled to travel to Washington for talks next week, Politico has been told, and the issue will be discussed on the trade tariffs. The original spat was between Trump and the EU, but Britain was forced to carry the tariffs over after Brexit. The UK retaliated with penalties on Levi jeans, bourbon whiskey and Harley-Davidson motorcycles. So the UK government is trying to is conducting a trade war with the United States. I cannot see that going very fucking well. Now, this is the funny bit for me. Oh, I'll show. I think I'm going to have to open this up. Meanwhile, yeah. So Naomi Leary has put. Meanwhile, over on Mary Lou McDonald's Twitter feed, there she is. The Senate. She's standing with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Glad to meet with Sinn Féin Ireland President Mary Lou McDonald to discuss her commitment to the full implementation of the Good Friday Agreement and the Stormont House Agreement. Congress is committed to supporting the accountability, reconciliation, right, and prosperity on the island of Ireland. That could have been written by Sinn Féin. But that's the American Senate Foreign Relations Committee. But meanwhile, don't forget, the British government is sending a Trevelyan to conduct International Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan. We in Ireland know the significance of that name. Trevelyan's corn, right? Robert Trevelyan, we know who he was, right? We know what he did. They're putting tariffs on US goods, Levi jeans and Harley Davidsons. But meanwhile, Mary Lou McDonald is meeting with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. There's the photograph of him looking all very smiley. Then putting out a statement that could have been written by Sinn Féin. Representative Richard Neal, there she is meeting President. I think that's President Biden, that's not Richard Neal. Thanks for the Friends of Ireland for their unflinching support for the protection of the Good Friday Agreement in all of its parts. Sorry, that is Richard Neal. There she is. Chris Murphy, great to have Mary Lou McDonald in Washington today. We talked about strengthening the US-Ireland alliance and the importance of protecting the Good Friday Agreement. Meeting today with Senate leader Senator Schumer and Chris Murphy. Important productive discussions on protecting the Good Friday Agreement, the protocol and preparations for Irish unity. So these two things are happening at once. The UK is sending a Trevelyan to negotiate, try and negotiate free access to the American steel market, which they may not get. But Sinn Féin are doing this. Ooh, big gust of wind there. So can you see that the contrasting approaches here? So let me just... So you can see there... Oh, hold on. Oh no, there was a whole pile of people had... They're not showing me the bloody replies. Let me see, hold on. Here we go. So, someone's replied under soft power, and that's what that is. And if you've ever, you probably heard me mentioning that before. Soft power. That's what's called soft power. And now, by the way, This is not about supporting Sinn Féin or saying Sinn Féin or this or Sinn Féin or Mary Lou McDonald's this, that or the other. It's not what it's about. That's not what this is. This is contrasts. I'm just showing you. Ireland is is the best country in the world at playing the soft power game. And whenever I mean, let's face it, we've no other game to play, but we are a bunch of charming bastards, so we may as well do that. That's what I think anyway. So, a woman here has said the power of the Irish lobby in Washington should not be underestimated. Another reason for Boris Johnson to be cautious. I don't know if Boris Johnson's going to have a job for much longer. Certainly not as the leader of the United Kingdom. So, the US is lifting tariffs on EU steel. The 1st of January, someone has replied here, hopefully Northern Ireland businesses can get the EU deal. They will. Right? That's the point of the Northern Ireland Protocol. So, and then, again, while that's all going on, UK Brexit Minister Lord Frost warns Joe Biden to stay out of Northern Ireland. Who these people think they are. Lord Frost is, by the way, he's a British politician. He's unelected. He's been appointed, and he's a lord, so you don't need to. You can't defend him, as far as I'm concerned. He shouldn't exist. Not as a human, as a lord. So there we go. I just wanted to share that with you. I thought that was hilarious. I did think it was funny. The two contrasting positions. You know, Lord Frost telling Joe Biden to stay out of Northern Ireland. Mary Lou McDonald standing there with the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And what is the other one? The Ways and Means Committee is another big one, right? And what it is what it is. It's one of these committees. It sounds like, you go, what is it? It doesn't sound like much, but it's one of the most powerful committees that you can get appointed to. And one of the members of it, his father is a Gaeilgeoir from Donegal. This guy watches the GAA channel in his office. This dude was born in America. He's a second generation first generation Irish American. His father is a Donegal man, and he loves Ireland. He visits Ireland all the time. Now, Brendan Boyle, that's his name. There's a Donegal name if ever you heard one. And these are the people that, regardless of who's in power, Brendan Boyle was on this committee when Trump was in power. He's on this committee now Biden's in power. And they're very upfront about their support for a united Ireland. So, regardless of who's on top, these committees still remain in place. This committee here, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, it'll still be there. And these people will still be on them, for the larger part. You know what I'm saying? And they want these things to happen. And they've got the money to make it happen. They control the purse strings. And putting 25% tariffs on British steel doesn't disappoint them. They'll not be saddened by it. They'll be glad of it, in fact. Because I imagine they would think that it would hasten the reunification of this island. Things like that. In so much as they can do. So, right. Last thing, and then I'm out of here. So there we go. So go and check that out. So you go and check out Naomi O'Leary if you can, if you want to. If you have a Twitter, you can do that. And go and have she's absolutely brilliant. I think she's a fantastic journalist. As in a proper, she's a forensic. I would not like to debate that woman. She would absolutely forensic in her analysis. She appears on Euronews every now and again, and on RTE and things like that. And she's really fucking knows her stuff. It's it's fantastic to see. And when you see her and her level of journalism, and then you contrast them with the establishment fucking lackeys, it's sickening. So I'm going to read you this quick article here. It's class. It's about witchcraft in Ireland. Now, I happen to live with a couple of witches. My wife and my daughter will quite proudly profess to be witches, and they love that stuff, and I like it too. So I'm going to read you this article. Now, it starts in Europe and it finishes in Ireland. So, the witch trials and witchcraft in Ireland. Alice Ketler. I think it's a Dutch name or a Belgian name. So, here we go. In 1324, Richard de Ledred, the then Bishop of Ossory, declared his diocese a hotbed of devil worshippers. Haha! Fucking move there in the morning, I would. Few knew the far-reaching dire consequences of this declaration would have, and the ripples it would send through the centuries. Remember back in, for those of you old enough, remember back in the 80s and the 90s, to play records back, I was quite young when they were doing it, but play records backwards, everything was like devil worshipping. The parents of the world seemed to be terrified of their children turning into devil worshippers. And it was legit, it was real, it was legit. They genuinely thought this was a big thing. All the heavy metal records, and then the heavy metal people, you know that they were only winding them up. They would make the album sleeves more demonic as fucking by the day. It would drive all the nice middle classy people fucking mental. I remember seeing some dude on the news actually playing, I think it was a Madonna record, even she got wrapped up and all that, playing it backwards. And you can hear her saying, suck my cock, you know, stuff like that. And he's like, what the fuck? You mental. So, the woman at the centre of this all, back to the article now, not the Madonna record. The woman at the centre of all of this was Alice Ketler. I'm going to pronounce that Ketler, it's probably wrong. A wealthy woman from a Flemish merchant family. Her accumulated wealth over multiple marriages had led to the accusations of witchcraft. Circa 40 years before the landmark case, Alice had married a wealthy merchant stroke moneylender and had a son. Following her husband's death, she married another wealthy man. He subsequently handed over his fortune to Alice's son from the first marriage, much to the chagrin of his own children. This would later cause problems and ultimately become the impetus for future accusations against her. Upon her third marriage, her son somehow benefited financially again, and her final and fourth marriage was to a knight, Sir John de Poer. At this point, her accumulated wealth at the expense of her stepchildren, as well as de Poer, showing signs of arsenic poison, hair and fingernails falling out, and emaciated, led to the suspicion of Alice and the accusations of witchcraft. The change in attitudes towards sorcery and witchcraft, especially on the part of the church, would have a dramatic effect on this case, as would the machinations of the highly cunning bishop at the epicenter of the whole ordeal. Fantastic. So that you'll find that from these stories that what the accusations of witchcraft usually was through a lack of understanding of a particular thing, or because the woman was doing rather well for herself. This wasn't uncommon. For example, one of the last women to be burned in Ireland, in America, around the Salem witch trials, around that period. She was actually in Boston, but it wasn't exactly from Salem. But she was burned because she spoke Irish, because Irish was her language, and they didn't know that. They thought she was communing with the devil, and she was only speaking Irish. Maybe communing with the fairies, but maybe not the devil. So it was only a few hundred years prior to this case, in the 11th and 12th centuries, that sorcery and witchcraft was beginning to be seen as an inversion of Christianity, the practice of which would have been treated as a misdemeanor before this change in attitude. In 1258, Pope Alexander legislated in favour of inquisitorial prosecution for sorcery due to its new connection to heresy. This allowed the church to institute torture as a method to procure confessions from suspected heretics, witches and sorcerers, and some might say, this is me, that they continue to do that to this day. This in turn gave the church more power than secular court in these regards. Before this, it lay on the accusers to furnish proof of guilt. These crimes had usually been dealt with in English law as a petty offence. Inquisitorial prosecution, it seems, was introduced into this case by Bishop Ledred, another French sounding name that I'm going to mangle, who likely picked up the practice from a stay at the court of Avignon, the then papal seat. Ledred had originally been sent to Ireland in the years leading up to the accusations of Ketler by the Pope, who was known to be terrified of sorcery because of his zeal for reform and strict adherence to the law of the church. In total, 7 charges were brought against Alice. I'm going to refer to her as Alice from now on, by the way, instead of her surname, which I can't pronounce, including denying Christ in the church, cutting up living animals and scattering them at the crossroads as an offering to a demon called Son of Art. The crossroads are understood to be liminal spaces and are often employed in magical sites. 3. Stealing church keys and performing rituals inside the church at night. 4. In a skull of a thief, her and her accomplices placed the entrails of animals, the organs of a cockerel, nails cut from bodies, hair from the buttocks, and used clothes from baby boys who had died before baptism. Using these ingredients, they were said to have made potions to kill people and make people hate Christians. It was claimed Alice had a familiar with whom she fornicated. It either appeared as a cat, a shaggy dog, or a black man. Yeah, wee bit of racism thrown into the accusation. 6, that she used sorcery to convince her husbands to give their wealth to her and her son, and she also used sorcery to kill them. 7, poisoning her last husband. Ledred, this is the bishop, had used the law to force secular powers to obey the word of the bishop. So that means that he used the law ut ingustionis from 1298 to force the normal court, to obey the word of the bishop. Luckily, a prior of the Hospitaliers of St. John, a relative of Alice's first husband, stood up for her and put a spanner in the works. Ledred was told that he would have to hold a public prosecution and that she would have to be formally excommunicated before they could go ahead with the charges. Ledred attempted to have the prior arrested on charges of heresy, but the prior had some powerful acquaintances in the case of Seneschal of Kilkenny. The Seneschal had Ledred arrested for 17 days to prevent the arrest of the prior. Ledred used his full advantage to start to swing public opinion in his favour. He placed an interdict on the diocese, meaning that no baptism, marriages and burials could take place. And given the strong belief in hell during this period, this was obviously of grave importance to the eternal souls of all the parishioners. He also used his influence while incarcerated to give masses in full regalia from his cell. During this time, the Seneschal put criers in each outlying town to see if anyone wanted to lodge complaints against Ledred. Every move on Ledred's part was carefully orchestrated for maximum effect. He left his cell in full high vestments. He turned up in the Seneschal's court in full regalia, holding consecrated hosts before him, as any assault on him would ultimately be an assault on Christ himself. He was not alone. In tow were Franciscans, Dominicans, and an entire cathedral chapter. He also carried a decree concerning heretics. After forcing his way into the court, the Seneschal asked him to get into the dock for questioning. He claimed that since he was holding the host, it would be like putting Jesus himself on trial, just like when he was tried by Pontius Pilate. Despite the best efforts of all involved, it was inevitable that public opinion would sway in the direction of the church and the bishop, due to the constant attacks and insults. Upon seeing that the public opinion was turning against her, Alice used her wealth to flee from Dublin and was never heard from again. Her not as wealthy associates and alleged co-conspirators were subsequently rounded up and arrested, using a papal decree and under inquisitorial procedure confessed. Unfortunately, only the poorest of these, Alice's maid-servant, Petronella de Meath, bore the brunt of the whole thing. She was tortured, whipped, and ultimately burnt at the stake. Ugh. It was legal to torture under church law, but not secular law. Isn't that nice? And while all others were released on payment of sureties, William Outlaw, the friar, was arrested and accused of heresy. He begged forgiveness and was released on the condition that he would pay penance in the form of saying multiple masses each day for a couple of years, and also by relaying the roof of a church. He was later rearrested for not carrying his penance out. Jesus Christ. It's brilliant. You get yourself off from a bit of devil worshipping if you put lead on the roof of a church. A quote from a Franciscan friar at the time reads, John Klyn reads, "Moreover, even in olden days it was neither seen nor heard of that anyone suffered the death penalty for heresy in Ireland." So what had brought about this? So basically he was saying it never happened again. No one suffered the death penalty for heresy after that. So what had brought about this drastic change in attitude in Ireland that culminated in the barbaric death of a poor young maidservant? In short, Ledred, the man at the centre of it all. It is very likely that Ledred himself introduced the connection of demonic forces and witchcraft to Ireland. It is no surprise that the landmark case found its way into a number of annal entries at the time. Many people in a European context believe that the case was a development of a phenomenon which, with its distinctive characteristics of diabolism, gave rise to the great witch trials of the 16th and 17th century. Before the Ketler case, these ideas had not really permeated beyond the papal courts of Avignon. It was circa 1300 in France that learned circles started to disseminate the idea that a witch was connected to satanic seats and diabolical powers. To give further context to this, 17 years before this case, the King of France, Philip IV, had the Templar Order put to death on many similar charges of diabolism. So the Knights Templar, right? That's who he's talking about. They were all killed because they were accused of being satanic, right? Ledred was appointed by the Pope. Knights Templar Order. The Pope of the time also fanned the flames by thinking his life was in danger from sorcery. Ledred was appointed by the Pope himself and had actually been present at the court during the Templar trials. This, of course, is likely to have influenced his belief system, and he is also likely to have had direct contact with the learned milieu who espoused the radical ideas of heresy. So there we go. I'm just going to finish the last paragraph here. It will come as no surprise to anyone that 5 years following the death of Petronella de Meath, that's the maid, Richard de Ledred had overplayed his hand and was finally exiled from Ireland. Good fucking riddance, you absolute psycho. Unfortunately for Petronella, it was too little too late. So give a little thought to this, Simon, to all the women over the centuries who were executed under the guise of being witches. Isn't that a great wee article? I love that. And that's the point. You must understand that what is accused of being the witch thing, it's a threat to the orthodoxy, because often these women are healers. They use natural remedies, natural ingredients, etc., which was all a part of the common folklore. But people that were better at it than others, people that were, they get called witches, and then they attached the demonic thing to it. The satanic element was. Someone's replied to me here. Thomas Clark, my ma got called a witch all the time. The local kids painted witch on our front wall some years ago. When she painted the wall later, she painted around it. Yes! She was proud of it. Brilliant. It's a badge of honour, in my opinion. As I said, my wife, Janie, she would be what I would... We call her a witch in the most respectful way possible, because she is a healer. That's what she does. She's interested in the stuff, and she's always done it. And before she ever, got into sort of calling herself a witch, or being referred to as one, she would, from I've known her, she's always been that way. She always was able to find natural remedies to heal common ailments, and still does so to this day. I don't know why there's a picture of a little house on the screen there, because it was attached to the article, so I thought it was going to become relevant as I read, and it wasn't at all. So I'll just take it down. So there we go. That's me done. That's a great story, isn't it? I you know what? And when you read the rap sheet against Alice, not the churchy one, denying Christ in the church, cutting up animal, all this stuff, but when you read all these men giving her all their money and at the expense of their own children, and then she just disappeared, you say, oh, she just jumped on her broom and fucking flew away. That's what she did. I think it's class. She might have been that sort of a, who knows. I think it's fucking fantastic. But we need more of these people. We need more of these people in our world, in our lives. The world would be a much better place for it, I can assure you. So there we go. That's me done. Hope you got something out of that. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. I know I've been pretty good up until this past few weeks, but I explained that about doing these every Wednesday, depending on what way my job goes. That will determine the regularity of these and what happens with them. So there we go. I'm done. I'm finished. So thanks for joining me. Like, share, subscribe, everybody, and I'll talk to you next week, I think, at some point.